John, nice having you here. Welcome back from the Ukraine. Tell us, how was your impressions of the Ukraine? What did you see? What did you see in terms of agriculture there?
Yeah, very interesting. Obviously, a very agriculture-intense country, and they're literally the breadbasket of Europe, and also a large part of the world food production. 1 in 3 slices of bread comes from that region that's consumed in Africa and the Middle East. So a very big agricultural operations, big scale, but obviously very badly affected now by the conflict and the war that's taken place, where essentially large parts of arable land have been turned into battlegrounds. A lot of infrastructure has been damaged. And of course, the blockage of the ports. All of these things have a huge effect on the agriculture there. And very interesting to interact with farmers, but also people in the agricultural sector there around the management of it. And they're obviously very honest. I mean, their production capability is going to be constrained for months and years to come.
And what's the general feeling in the Ukraine? I mean, are people still, what's the morale like? Do they see an end in sight, or are they sort of like bunkering down for the long haul?
They are very, very resolute. They're very united. I met with all of the opposition party leaders, and all of them are behind President Zelensky. They're saying, we've got to win this war, we've got to get through it, and if we don't, Ukraine will cease to exist, and our culture and traditions will just simply disappear. So there's a solidarity and a unity of purpose there, which I haven't seen in many, many countries for a very, very long time. So very, very united, and I think even more resolve of the nation after the atrocities post the Russian occupation of places like Irpin and Bucha, where I visited, where civilians had been murdered, put into mass graves, damage done to residential properties and pharmacies, clinics and schools. That's hardened the resolve of the Ukrainian people to be able to now go out and say, we've got to push Russia back over the borders.
So just from the Ukraine back to South Africa, you've been in KZN recently. Just give us your views on that, specifically in agriculture. How bad's the damage? What do the outcomes look like there?
Yeah, well, there's 2 major knock-on effects for agriculture. Firstly, it's the infrastructure that's been damaged, bridges washed away, roads washed away, farmers cut off from their markets. The second thing is the huge damage that was done around the port. Already Durban is one of the bottom 5 ports for efficiency in terms of agricultural products, and this has made it even slower and worse. So farmers are really struggling. And then, of course, many of them were just starting to get back on their feet after the terrible violence and riots that broke out across the province in July last year, where farms were burnt, small farming towns were destroyed completely, and they were just getting back on their feet, and now these floods damaged agricultural land. Very, very little help and assistance from government, both provincially and a municipal level across the province for those farmers. And again, this is going to play into, I think, a large part of the food insecurity and the food crisis that South Africa is facing in these coming months ahead. And that's why I call it often, we're going into the winter of discontent. And if one sees what happens when people are hungry, we had a foretaste of it in KZN. I think we could see it on a larger scale across the country. Just in the last 2 weeks, what's happened in Sri Lanka, same situation they have. No power, corruption, no food, massive unemployment. And those people rose up now against their government. A hungry man is a dangerous man because he will do anything to feed his family. And we've got to do something to head it off at the pass, because this July I think is going to be tougher than the last one.
And we had those very disconcerting reports out of former Transkei, close to Mthatha, with those children dying from hunger. I mean, do you think we're underestimating what's actually going on in South Africa?
We are underestimating it, and we don't see it as a priority. We lose 7,500 children under the age of 5 every year in the country to malnutrition. It's not disease. It's not sickness, it's malnutrition. It's not enough food being given to them. I think it's a lot worse. I think the official figures are not accurate with what's happening on the ground. I was, 3 weeks ago, I did a road trip from Umzimvubu all the way down to through Mthatha and out to East London again, and met with communities along the way, many of them existing on grant funding only. For them, it's a 50 Rand one-way trip to town just to buy food. and many of them are existing on grants. It's the only income they have. And when you've got a gouge out of 50 of your 350 going on a one-way transport, then the food that's gone up, oil by 28%, it's a toxic mix. And I mean, we're hearing these heartbreaking stories of children eating sand just to fill their bellies, cooking grass just to try and make some form of soup that the children can eat. And I think it's something we underestimate in South Africa, and we've got to do something about it. Poverty and hunger are, I think, two of the big crises that we're not talking nearly enough about as South Africa.
And what is the response that you get in Parliament when you talk about it? I mean, is there a genuine concern for this crisis?
Well, I don't think government realizes yet how big it is. And that's one of the reasons I took that bag of food into Parliament and showed the President the oil and the sugar that's gone up by 28%, by 8.6%, the pilchards that have gone up by almost 15 Rand a can in the last 4 years. This is the reality for many South Africans. Now, I don't know if politicians or the cabinet ministers live in this bubble where you don't worry about crime because you've got a VIP protection unit. You don't worry about a house because government gives you a house. In the petrol price, government covers it. So I almost think that the government is existing in this bubble where they don't actually realize what's happening on the ground and what it's like for ordinary South Africans who are struggling to make ends meet and who cry every time they've got to put petrol in at the tank or have to buy less food to bring home at the end of the day.
Just quickly, because we have to wrap up, but you've got kids dying of hunger in the former Transkei, and then you've got Nampo. How do we reconcile these two extremes?
Well, what we have to do is make sure as a country that we're doing what we can to support farmers. We've got to reduce the input costs. We've got to remove the insecurities around policy. We've got to make sure that we make our rural areas safer so that our farmers can produce at maximum capacity and start to farm again. I think there's been a lot of disinvestment in agriculture over this uncertain period of expropriation without compensation. And then we've got to do other things. Cut the government levies on fuel, drop the sugar tax, and make sure that we drop VAT on some meat and chicken products. Those are three things we can do immediately, which I think will start to bring some relief. But if we don't take care of our farmers, they should be the national treasure of the country. We're going to end up in like Ethiopia and other countries in Africa where we're having to import the majority of our foodstuffs.
John, thank you so much for joining us, and enjoy what's left of Nampo.
Great, thank you. Great to be here.